Hello, my name's Bonte, Richard Bonte, and this is Curmudgeonly Yours, a show on Society Bites Radio, part of the Radio Ear Network family, supplying social interaction for the mind and soul. The introductory and concluding music to this show is La Polonaise by Wieniawski, played by Max Bonte. I am your host and curmudgeon, where everything is what it seems. Nothing is what it seems. And what is not said is often of most interest. Today on Curmudgeonly Yours, I'll be reading selected passages from the Wuhan Plague, which I co-wrote with James Crew Allen over the past 5 weeks. The Wuhan Plague is a book for our time. The idea is simple enough. An idealistic Stanford University microbiologist graduate joins a Wuhan virology lab to save humanity from pandemics. But it is 2018, not 2020. And he has been duped. He discovers he is really part of a secret biowar facility. Where does the story go from here? Let's listen to some selected passages from our fictional novel, The Wuhan Plague, by James Crew Allen and Richard Bonte, available on Amazon's Kindle. Prologue, May 2020. I look down at the big white ambulances, their sirens screaming, flashing down the center of 34th Street and out through the tunnel under the East River and over to Queens. I was so high up in my building, the New York City cabs below looked like yellow miniature toys scampering to get out of the way of the charging dead. I switched on the TV to block out the racket, but now the blare of the sirens was coming through the speakers as well, because that's all there was on TV. Corona, COVID-19, Corona. Fully masked people in blue uniforms with purple surgical gloves and face guards were running about pell-mell in a military-type field hospital. Outside the emergency entrance, ambulances were pulling up 3 at a time. Orderlies and nurses, some of them not even wearing proper protective clothing, were loading, coughing and choking patients onto stretchers and looking for vacant hospital beds. These were filling up fast. A man with his face mask fogging up, his chest heaving, and his head twisted unnaturally to the side was fighting for air. "He's dying! Quick! Get the ventilator!" Another ventilator was wheeled up. There weren't many left, and the stretchers were lined up outside. Soon there won't be enough. Bleep, it's no use. There was another wave of blue uniforms, masks, gloves, and covered shoes, all running and walking in different directions. The man's body was now convulsing. His face was thrashing from side to side. It was all the orderly could do to attach the ventilator. The orderly was worried about his own mask being yanked off as the dying mask grasped for something, anything to survive. Finally, the ventilator tube was in place, and the orderly backed off to watch. But it was no use. The man's heart was failing him. Despite his new oxygen tube, he was literally being asphyxiated. The monitor flatlined, and the orderly now began giving the dying patient a massive amount of cardiac massage. It seemed to last forever, but it was only 90 seconds, and that was it. I switched off the TV. I could not take it anymore. I sat quietly for a moment and began to remind myself of the wonderful days in what now seemed like a bygone era. Stanford and our graduation, summer at the beach. Whatever happened to David Cheng? He was working in Wuhan, China, wasn't he? Chapter 1, Little China Girl, Stanford University, early June 2018. David Cheng grabbed a tray and plate and stood in front of his microbiology advisor, who was grilling hamburgers on the barbecue. David wasn't used to seeing his advisor in this light, with his large white cook's hat and bright red gloves. "I'll have a burger with Swiss cheese if you don't mind, Dr. Reinhardt, and maybe some of those onion rings too." "Thanks," said David as he extended his plate. Professor Reinhardt loaded David's plate with a burger, onions, potato salad, and a perfectly grilled sesame seed bun. "I'll be sad to see you go, David. You've been more helpful to me than a fourth-year doctoral student. Are you going to work or study or do both next year?" "I'm first going to take a short vacation on the Gulf Coast in Florida. Then it's back to Hong Kong and see my parents. I've been offered a great research job at the World Health Organization, but I'd like to first talk things over with my dad. The fees at Stanford have really set me back, and I need to make some money pronto." The WHO, WHO, wow, that's a great place to work. Geneva, Switzerland. I'm not sure yet, but whatever it is, I'll definitely need your recommendation, Dr. Reinhardt. Anything I can do to help. Research is your strong suit, David. Epidemiology is what is important, what with the recent SARS and Ebola outbreaks. The WHO does the best research in the world in epidemiology. I think you should take that position. Thanks for the tip, said David, taking a bite of his burger. Have you ever been a chef, Dr. Reinhardt? This tastes great. I'm a chemist by trade, David. Cooking and all the rest is just a sideline of chemistry. Go have a seat with your friends. Little groups of 4 or 5 graduating seniors sat around picnic tables spread out among the eucalyptus trees. A huge cardinal and white banner featuring the words Class of 2018 stretched out between the two groups. Just to enter Stanford was a Herculean task with its 4% acceptance rate. One had to be extremely intelligent and preferably a member of one of the many diverse groups on campus. David Cheng was one such person, an extremely bright individual with an IQ of 160 and a weighted grade point average of 5.2 out of 4. He also played the cello and was an excellent volleyball player. He had belonged to a top service organization, the Kiwanis Club, in his high school in Hong Kong, where he had grown up, the son of a Chinese father and white American mother. He was tall and good-looking and had an easygoing personality which hid the fact that he was very hard-working and industrious. He was the perfect 4% candidate. One thing David did not like was too much sun, so he cast his eye around for a shady spot and saw a group of people seated under a palm tree. David, get over here, will you? It was Jesse Owens, the key spiker on their volleyball team, and someone he had occasionally went to the beach with at Santa Cruz to play 2-on-2 beach volleyball. Owens was an aeronautical engineer. How's the future savior of our human race doing? Well, you could say that about you too, Mr. Rocket Scientist, said David, straddling the picnic bench and taking a bite of his hamburger, and even when you're busy spiking the ball. Hey, David, how's it going, guy? You good? There was a chorus of greetings from the different members of his close friends, whom he probably wouldn't see too much of after he went to Hong Kong. And then David greeted them all, but there was one person he didn't know, and she was seated almost opposite him. Do you know Shidi Wan, David? Asked Jesse. Can't say I do, said David. Hi, my name's David Cheng. Ni hao ma. Pleased to meet you. Ni hao ma. And I'm pleased to meet you, said Shidi Wan in heavily accented English. Shidi Wan had shoulder-length black hair parted on the side. She was slim and tall for a Chinese girl, 5'7". She was both pretty and serious. She studied David intently when he wasn't looking at her, but would peep down or away when he did. A few seconds went by as they looked around. Then they studied each other at the same time and suddenly went into their native Mandarin. David's accent was quite different from hers. All Jesse noticed was that he had suddenly been excluded from the conversation, but David said quickly, "Excuse us, Jesse. Let me talk to her in Chinese for a bit, and then we'll get back to the party." To her credit, Shidi Wan told Jesse the same thing with a hand gesture and then reverted to studying David. "Where are you from?" David asked her in Mandarin. "I'm from Beijing," she answered. "Funny," he said. "You sound like you're from Wuhan." "Oh, maybe because my parents are from there," she replied. "Do you know a lot of people in China?" "Not really. Most of the people I know are from Hong Kong," said David. "But I've met some scientists from Wuhan that lecture frequently in Hong Kong and the United States. They are the leading experts in my field." "Really?" she replied. "What is your field?" "Epidemiology," David responded. "Do you know it?" "Sure, I know it. My mother's a doctor." "That's funny," David answered. "Both my parents are doctors. We have a lot in common." "What are you doing after graduation?" "I've got a job at the World Health Organization in Geneva, but if that doesn't work out, maybe I'll come back here and do research." "As a grad student?" she said. "You're not sick of it here yet?" "Of California? You're asking me? That's a funny question from a Chinese girl," David said. "What about you? Are you a student here?" "I've been here on a 6-month sabbatical in the business school." The business of America is business. Calvin Coolidge said that. No better place for studying business in the world. Oh, in case you didn't know, Calvin Coolidge was the 30th president of the United States in the 1920s. Of course I knew, David. He also said it takes a great man to be a great listener. It follows that it takes a great listener to be a great man. Or a great woman. Definitely, I'm listening to you, D1. Some people say the place to do business today is China. But I don't think so unless your mother and father is a member of the Chinese Communist Party. If not, you really struggle. She D1 smiled bleakly, her eyes dull. Let me guess, your father is a member of the Communist Party? Yes. So you could never live in Taiwan? Taiwan is a renegade state, David. David felt uncomfortable with this response, but banished it from his thoughts as he really liked Xi. When are you going back to China? Tomorrow morning. Oh, so soon? I'm sorry. The sorrow's mine, since I've really enjoyed talking to you. She looked at her watch and said, That reminds me, I have to pack. The twinkle was back in her eye. She bent over very close to David to shake his hand and said, I wish you the very best in your chosen career, and hopefully we will meet again. With that, she smiled, said goodbye to Jessie, waved vaguely to the others, and sauntered off to the parking lot. Jessie looked at David. Funny, dude. I seem to hear samba music playing in the background while your Chinese girl from Ipanema just walks away. Chapter 2, Life's a Beach, July 2018, Siesta Key Beach, Sarasota, Florida. David uncovered the simple sheet on his side of the bed, swung his feet over, sat up, stretched, and yawned. His feet had landed on a pink bra and matching panties that he picked up and placed on the night table. He looked over and patted her firm butt right where a ray of sunlight had pushed through a broken slat in the plantation shutters. Come on, Gina, time to rise and shine. He leaned over and kissed her cheek. She was out cold. He hoisted himself up and made his way to the bathroom over a pair of strewn clothes. He relieved himself, brushed his teeth, donned a pair of gym shorts, and pushed through to the kitchen. Within minutes, David had prepared toast, fruit, cereal, and orange juice, and 2 cappuccinos with his espresso machine. Within those same minutes, Gina had stumbled through to the bathroom, washed and dressed, and made her way to the kitchen. They sat down and looked out onto a huge expanse of white sand that stretched a good 100 feet to the water. David's beach rental was small and run down, but one side of the extra-large kitchen was all picture window that faced due west. In the morning, the rising sun from the east bleached out everything. In the evening, the sand was brown, red, and gold as the locals watched the daily sunset from behind their cocktails. David had discovered that there were only 2 times to play volleyball in the atrocious Florida heat. In the morning at 6 a.m. or 12 hours later at 6 p.m. It was presently 5:45 a.m., and already 75 degrees. By noon, it would be up to at least 95. Even by 8 a.m., when they would have finished, the temperature was expected to rise to 85 with 70% humidity. David noted that the volleyballers had already arrived. He figured that he only needed 30 minutes to get ready, including breakfast, and he would be playing ball with some of the best beach volleyballers in the world. He nodded to Gina, and they made their barefoot way onto the sand. She was tall and slim and young, with sandy blonde hair and deep blue eyes. She couldn't have been more than 18, with only the smallest of tattoos on her right butt cheek. She had stood out since she wasn't sporting the huge disfiguring tattoos that everyone else had. As Cristiano Ronaldo, the good-looking megastar soccer player from Portugal, had modestly once said, "If you have a Ferrari, do you plaster it with bumper stickers?" David had met Gina the day before on the volleyball court, and she seemed to know everyone. At Siesta Key, there was Jim and Dave, Mike and Tony, Gina and Debbie, or the Latins like Raul and Alonso.